I've never done a voiceover for any of our videos before, and I hate sensationalism, so this. It isn't clickbait, but we were genuinely lied to. You'll notice that this video, all the footage is quite old. You'll see possibly staff members that have moved on, and you'll see cars that have featured in previous episodes. This is old footage from a couple of years ago. We weren't able to share it before because legal stuff. This has taken a long time to come to the point we can make a video about it.
I have sent everybody away so that I can nerd out about tractors. Love these tractors. Fergusons were probably the greatest export out of Northern Ireland ever. Built these from 46 till 56 and sold nearly 250,000 of them, 237,000 or something like that. A lot of them. And this one, so everybody calls them a TE-20, but they had different numbers after that. So this is a TE-20 because it runs TVO, which is tractor vaporizing oil, which is a thing they invented, I think mainly during the Second World War, to run vehicles that was like like 2/3 paraffin and 1/3 petrol. It was basically to save on petrol running costs, because petrol was scarce, obviously, and they needed it. So they invented this kind of oil, which means these tractors run on anything. But yeah, so you need to run them on this TVO. They don't actually really even like being run completely on petrol. Petrol is used for starting. I think that one's the petrol one, and then this is the TVO tank, which is much bigger. And then you the carbs on this side, and you have a little lever to swap that over. So there is petrol in there. It smells a little bit stale, but like I say, they'll run on anything, so that should actually work. Just check TVO in here. There's actually some TVO in there too, which is good. I'm going to swap in a battery here for the purposes of trying to get this thing to run. And then I can, like I say, nerd out a little bit about these. So from let me see, from 46 to 48 they were the TE-20. They only came petrol, and they had a Continental Z160 or something like that engine in them. And then after that, then they went to a standard engine. And by that I don't mean it's a standard engine, I mean it was made by the Standard Motor Company of England. So that was a standard 8 engine, I believe, because that's the car. It was in a standard 8, and that's the engine they used. So they lifted it basically directly into this and built the gearbox to suit. This was very easy to work on engine, hopefully, because we're going to try and get this thing to run. And then we made it that it could be run on TVO, obviously. That standard engine went in late 47 and then ran right through to 56 whenever they stopped making these. This was a fantastic tractor. This really is put tractors right into the modern age. Essentially, this is the first modern tractor, and had a great link system at the back, the Ferguson link, which was, this was all developed by Harry Ferguson, who was from County Down in Northern Ireland. And this is why I said this is Northern Ireland's greatest ever export. This is the best thing that ever come out of Northern Ireland. Basically changed the face of tractorizing. He invented a whole pile of different ploughs and attachments and things for the back as well. And for the front, there's diggers and lifts and cranes and all sorts of things attached to these. And they're great fun to drive. They're actually quite nippy as well. And this one's in really good shape. So there's actually no bodywork needing done on this. It's been looked after. I can't see that it's been welded. There's maybe new parts on it. Definitely the tires are all new on it. The exhaust might be original, but the rest of the bodywork seems to be original, or else it's been replaced with other original parts, and it's all in really good nick. It's obviously been painted at some point. It's much better paint than mine. Mine's a bit. Anyway, we're going to give this a go, see if we can get this fixed. I don't know how long it'll take or what it's going to take, but it's that classic will it run kind of thing. It's been dragged out of a garage and hasn't been run for a long time, so I'm going to see what it takes to get it going again. There you can see the problem with old battery terminals is that as I try to turn that 13mm spanner on there, then the square end on the other side is actually that worn that it's just turning as well. So I believe I requested coffee. It'd be very handy if that coffee came and was sitting there. I need tea actually for working on this, don't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who drew flat that up?
Of the person who makes tea for me. Okay, well, battery in. Let's just see what happens when we go to start it. Nothing at all. Okay, so that's obviously part of the problem. You can hear the switch working, but there's nothing happening. So I think the next logical step is just to check our starter and see if the starter is actually working.
So the story goes like this. There was someone saw me driving around in my tractor and asked me if I would have a look at their tractor. It wasn't until we got the tractor back that I discovered stuff like...
It's positive earth. Okay, so what we have there is a working starter motor. Obviously, be very careful when you're doing that because that takes a lot of draw. In fact, that's actually slightly warm now, and that's a fairly robust starter lead jump cable. So, because we have a work in that, and you can see it was turning the fan, that means everything's working on that end. So we have a problem in our switch. Are we getting tea? Tea! Excellent. Now, that just makes everything working on tractors better. See, when you're working on tractors, you need tea.
So let's get on with it and see what else we find.
It's great wee footrests here that are just the right height for putting the tea on as well. So we have a faulty switch by the look of it. Even though you can feel whenever you're putting the gear selector into the start slot, you can feel the switch clicking, but there doesn't appear to be anything happening here from this switch to the starter, because obviously the starter motor is working fine, we knew that. I also know that as long as I have the ignition circuit turned off, whenever I'm jumping off that battery and jumping to the starter, it isn't going to start because there's no power going to the coil. So that's the way to keep yourself safe when you're doing that. Yeah, that is the lead going from the negative, which is our live wire, and our hot.
At this point I'm still slightly confused because I wasn't told that this was a positive earth tractor.
The question is it this? So again, that is relatively easy to ascertain. All we need to do is disconnect this. Now, because we're now onto our heavy duty hot wires here, make sure you're disconnected. In fact, disconnect the battery too. Since the battery's disconnected, just to be sure, because this is the one where you get electrocuted. Now, this is safe now, because there's no power at the starter motor, so this wire, it doesn't even matter if it touches. Even if I connect the battery back up, it won't matter. It's safe. It's only not safe if you left a hot wire lying loose. So that's absolutely fine. Retighten our battery. And then, if I take this lead, which runs to the starter, and connect it there, then I can see if bypassing the starter switch gets us the starter motor working. And it does, which means that this switch is the culprit. Our switch is connected by a cotter pin. You're going to have a look at this. So a cotter pin is basically a round pin, and we need to remove the split pin on the other side. To remove that split pin, which is not too hard if you have good strong fingers. Slide out the cotter pin. Which doesn't really want to come out. There we go. That's the cotter pin. Basically just a rotating pin that holds that in place. We'll try not to lose that, so That is very likely to fall in there. So we will get something useful like, here's a long stringy thing, it's otherwise known as a cable tie. Put that cable tie through there, and that will not go anywhere. It's quite safe like that. So our switch, let's have a look at this. Start by taking the switch apart. So we have a sprung switch in here. So we don't want to lose any of our parts. Be careful. This is just our connecting body here. You can see it's a little bit corroded. So if we disconnected this bolt here, then we'd actually be able to remove those plates and clean them up. So we might just do that as well. First of all, let's have a look at this switch. Switch is very simple. The spring is a little rusty as well. The brass plunger appears to be fine. The spring on that is fine. The rubber isolator is fine. So it does appear to be sanding marks, as though maybe somebody has tried to repair this before. Don't really want to take much material off this, so I'm just using the scratch pad just to clean it up. I don't want to reduce the size and dimensions of it. Once again, very loose. Slightly tightening up towards the top, but not enough to stop me getting off my fingers. And then, so that's not really corroded, but it does corroded a bit, but it's also just dirty. Really dirty, and that has had what looks like a fabric or cork washer at a time, which is not great. It's just bits of it remaining, but not in good shape at all. Okay, so this part is going to be, well, it feels like plastic, but knowing that original parts wouldn't have been plastic, they would have been Bakelite, then I'm going to surmise that it might be Bakelite.
At this point, I'm still blissfully unaware that somebody has been tampering with pretty much every part that I'm going to touch on this tractor.
What I've noticed is one side has this little spacer plate and the other side doesn't. So whenever this contact is squeezed in, it's not making an even contact. Now, it may be okay, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So at this point, I'm just going to bolt it back together and see. Just going to see. What I'm doing is just making a circuit. So the circuit here is power comes out of battery, runs to one side of the switch, then the switch must be switched on, and then power would run through the switch, come out the other side, connect to this light, which is connected by this to the earth side of the battery, thus completing the circuit. So the circuit is incomplete at the moment until this switch is turned on. Once the switch is turned on, that little light there should light up, and it's not. And just to demonstrate what I'm talking about, if I do this, do you see that? That's a circuit being made. I'm bridging those two, and avoiding the switch altogether. Or what I can also do is take that off and connect it to there, or connect that straight to the power side of the battery. Okay, so I'm looking for the switch to work in order to give us the power to do that. So that's proof there that it does, in fact, the light does work. So the problem here is our switch. So what I want to do now is investigate what part of the switch is the problem. I'm just holding a little bit of tension on that wire just because it's a little bit loose there. And then what I want to do is see if I can make a connection here between these two copper pieces. Yeah, do you see that? Okay, that is very particular. It's difficult to make a connection that would hold. It's just a little bit too loose. So I wonder if that offset plate that I mentioned is actually causing our issue there. So what I'll do is... So what I've done here is I've cut a couple of washers up to make basically a little spacer. So back to our testing circuit. Put that back on there. And we'll see what happens. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's a nice circuit, right? So that could very well be our issue. So we'll quickly get this rebuilt. Now, another problem might be just if it puts a wee bit too much strain on, if those are pushed out too far, then there is the possibility that it'll be constantly on, which would be just as bad, but we'll not know that until we rebuild and test. But I am confident in this now. We shall see now. Look at that. That is fixed. William, don't! The bracket! William, get out of the road. You don't know what you're doing around stuff. You're too young.
I wasn't born when they were using these in fields, well.
And if that falls, then it will fall away in there. Woo. Yeah. That's a risky game. Let's not do that. Let's just put the cotter pin back into it. I'd prefer not to have to go fishing today. Go on. This is one of them like three-handed jobs. There you go. Look at that. Now we need to reconnect our battery. Now what you want to make sure with your battery always is, especially when working on something older, make sure you know if it's a positive or negative earth. So although this is still on old fuel, and I haven't touched the points, I haven't touched the HT leads, I haven't touched the fuel, I haven't touched the carb, none of that yet. All I've done is rebuilt the starter motor and made sure that the starter motor itself works and made sure the ignition works, and a couple other things just to make sure that we're not going to end up blowing anything up. But now essentially what I need to do is jump on. I haven't put the battery strap or anything on yet because I mean we're not done yet, so this is just basically, will the thing run? Give ourselves an ignition live circuit. Let's put the foot on the clutch and let's see if it'll go. That would be a no. Okay, very, very worryingly, these wires are getting warm. They're quite warm.
Yeah, it didn't help that the owner told us that he'd converted the tractor to run 12 volts when in fact he hadn't, and everything was still 6 volts.
That is not good. Here's our issue here. There's an earth strap that is not, no sorry, not an earth strap, a negative strap that is not properly insulated at the end. And that is where it's warmest. I guarantee you that was making contact with the body of the tractor, which is just next to it. So I'll cut that, cut this, tighten down, we'll grab that. I don't know who was working on this. Why is there a green wire that becomes a red wire? Why? Why? Yellow wire that becomes a white wire. Why? Why would you do this to me? Right. I'm going to blame it for everything at the minute. Why is that getting warm? there was a contact being made there. This has been rectified. I wonder, does the starter switch work?
What are you thinking? You think it does or doesn't?
I don't know.
Do you want my advice on the starter switch?
Nope.
You do.
Do I?
I say yes.
Okay.
Stop wasting your time. £14 for a new one.
It doesn't matter because it's what the cause is.
Oh, no, I get that,
So,
like, but
Look,
definitely
I've
don't.
got that starter switch to work, so it's irrelevant about replacing it. And the problem is that
I mean, that starter switch is actually a pretty simple bit of kit.
yeah, there's a grounding issue somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, is the switch grounding out, or is something else grounding out?
Well, put the leads on and don't try and start it and see if the leads get warm.
Yeah, but essentially that is what's happening, because these leads literally, like this goes straight to here, straight to the body, and this one goes straight to that switch. So and this lead is not warm, so therefore yes, the starter switch is grounding out. Why is it grounding out? Seeing if this starter switch is causing the problem, earthing or what's going on, is to see if this starts heating the cables up when this is not connected to the body of the tractor, which is my suspicion that this is actually touching. So at the moment it's not touching earth on the tractor, so in theory that should work now. And then if that is the case, then I'll just have to rebuild the inside switch again to take out those extensions which somebody else had put in and I was only matching, which I didn't think was right anyway. Ignition light's still on.
Yep.
And nothing's happening.
When you press the button.
When I press the button. I wonder what happens when I cross this. And yet, nothing's happening with our starter switch. I guess we're opening it up again. Ah, that is twisted. Yep, that is twisted right out. That has been touching, once that's made a connection, that has been touching the side casing. So that is 100%, that is our issue there. That explains absolutely everything. Somebody modified these poles. Somebody modified one of the poles. Then I adjusted the other pole to match. And our switch is just falling apart. Okay. New switch time. So here we are again with a new switch this time, because the old one was just, try as I might to get it fixed, it was just beyond fixing. It was cracked inside, it had been modified before, terminals were uneven and they were very worn, and they'd been obviously had a bad connection for a long time before. So I went and got a new switch from a local tractor dealer. This is supposed to be the better quality one. I'm not convinced it's all that great of a quality, but it's better than a broken one, hopefully.
So yeah, I just wasted a pile of time trying to rebuild the original switch. William was right, I should have just went for a new one in the first place, but there I was thinking I was doing the right thing, trying to rebuild the original parts.
Sounds like success. At least what we've proved now is that it turns over. Starter end of it is fixed. Battery cables are fixed. Electric ignition box hopefully works. We'll check that next. We'll get into here, into distributor, and make sure we get the spark. We'll check the coil is actually producing the spark. We'll check the spark plugs, and I definitely want to check out this fuel. Also, this selector seems to be very, very wet, so it could actually be leaking. It is leaking. It's definitely leaking. So the next step now is, now that we have it turning over, is to check if we have fuel, spark and compression. Those are the things that you need on a petrol engine. Easiest one is spark. We'll start with that, and we could go through the whole process, but we'll just go straight to the end and see if we have spark first of all. Then we'll know. I find if we go to here and check if there's a spark. At this stage then we can go from here forwards or backwards depending on our results. So take your distributor cap off, give yourself some ignition, and then with an insulated screwdriver what you want to do is separate the points out and see if there is a spark. That's actually a really good spark. Next thing after that to do then is to figure out whether or not we have a spark on our spark plugs. I would ascertain whether or not the distributor is actually working. So there's a spark at the distributor, you can tell that much, but does that actually translate into a spark at the spark plugs? I'm going to check that and see. Once I get one of these out, wow, those are tight. Spark plugs do not need to be that tight. Doesn't matter which spark plug you go to, any of them will do. That's pretty gummed up. It's not terrible, I mean it should fire at that, but I'll definitely clean those before putting them back in. I'll take all of them out and clean them, but for now what I want to do is see if there's a spark here, so I'll do that. And what you need to do then to check that is get that earthed against the body somewhere. So now that we have a good spark, then the next step will be to check the fuel, because like I said, we need spark, we need fuel, we need compression. I will check the compression just to make sure, but it sounds like the compression's really good, so I'm definitely going to check the fuel next. So I'm working next on the carburetor. This pipe that's disconnected, that's for the air cleaner. The air goes in there. You also have this stop lever, which is essentially works the same as a choke, but not quite. You pull that, and that turns a butterfly in there, which blanks that completely off, starving it of all air, which would cut it out completely. When that's open, it has some air. You push it in, and that's fully open there now. You have your fuel pipe coming here, which runs up the back there and up to here, up into the tank. And then you have on the back, you have your lever for what's not really a throttle, more of a governor. And it's a really nice combination of levers. If you've never seen it, let me show you what way that works. So first of all, there's the lever up here, okay, which is your it's a hand throttle, let's say. So your hand throttle turns here, which turns a lever which you cannot see running down there inside the steering column. The column lever comes down, activated by the lever. There is a bracket, then a linear bar here that converts this circular motion into linear motion, into circular motion. Again, turns this plate, which is connected in here to another rod, and that rod runs the length of the fuel tank, or the length of the engine, to the front. And that rod is at the front of the engine, attached to this spring, which is attached to this lever, and on full extension activates this lever, which activates this rod, which connects to the carburetor. The problem is that there is about a quarter of the movement of the lever. After that, I have that much movement, as you can see in that. It does absolutely nothing. So I think maybe our carburetor is getting too great an adjustment too quickly. Maybe there would be some movement in this if I can take some of this slack out. Okay, next step is the petrol. You can clearly see that it's leaking from the bottom here. So there must be some gas getaway in this. So I'm just going to drain this off if I can. That's definitely a TVO at the minute, not petrol. I've been playing around with the filter here. There's a filter inside here, but I'll pop out away up the road. There is dirt there in the tank, and also the shape of this bolt. This bolt is filthy with dirt all in the tract where the fuel runs through, so I figure that could be a big part of it. It could be, well, it is. We could see that the petrol wasn't run through cleanly at all, and that would be why. It would be because it has dirt. So if I charge the compressor so we can clean that off. And release that and make it loose. Then the fuel is coming through just fine when I tighten that up. Tighten that bolt up. Nothing happens. It's really strange. Alright, as you can see, there's a lot less tractor than what there was the last time we did any video. What happened was basically just needed to get on with it a bit. We're running into a couple of issues. I just switched the camera off and just went through it and just stripped everything I could off the thing. So we had a tank up here, and then we had a filter here, and the filter ran through a copper pipe round the back of the engine and down to the carburetor. And what I was finding was the tank had sediment in it, so we needed to take that off to clean it out. The filter was leaking, so I had to take that off to reseal it, which still needs done. This pipe here is the one that joins the two together, and I needed to remove that and blow it through. There's a little bit of sediment in that too, but it was pretty much, it was clear. So at this point it was like, the fuel should be getting through to this, so the carb came off as well. The carb was very dry, and then at that point I checked and double checked everything again, checked the timing, so pulled the engine round to TDC and checked the timing on the distributor, that the spark was timing at the right time and in the right order as well, which it is. Compression as well was checked and was even throughout and was good. So at that point we had compression, we had timing, we had a spark, we didn't have any fuel. So we've been trying to get it to run. Took the carburetor off then as well, because I realised there's not fuel going through. This is standard updraft Zenith. So the carb came off. So went and got another fresh can of Easy Start, and it's just about firing on that now. It doesn't want to stay running on it, but I'm pretty confident that it's ready to go now. Screws out of the carburetor. It is, like I said, an updraft Zenith. So Zenith is the make. Updraft means that the carburetor goes under the inlet and the fuel has to go up. So I've unscrewed all of these bolts to take this off. And the seal, the gasket looks pretty good. This is the float bowl. I don't know if you can see it in the shadow there, but it is bone dry. So we were wondering, why are these dry? There should be some remnant of fuel in here. And then we started looking at this. We'll have to hold this upside down so you can see. Obviously when that comes up, it presses against this. Sometimes it comes down and sometimes it doesn't. The fuel comes into here through that copper pipe and then feeds into the float bowl through here, and then the carburetor is actually fed from the float bowl so that it doesn't get surged. Then that would run dry, and that we believe is actually why there's been no fuel getting through to the engine. So what we need to do is take this apart just here and give that maybe a little bit of a grease and just check there's no corrosion in there, and make that it can move more freely. So I have gaskets to go and pick up for the carburetor and for the filter from the local tractor spares shop. We were looking at the fuel pipe there, and I don't like the threads on it, and not only that, there's not a single flat shank left on this here on the nut. I was going to ask Linus there to rebuild or to make me a new fuel pipe just quickly for that, and he just picked it up, and as soon as he picked it up he twisted it and went, oh, what's this, and pulled it apart. So that rubber hose is not just there to protect it, it's actually holding two sides of the fuel pipe together, so that could cause a few leaks as well, I think.
There were so many parts in this tractor that I tried to fix that I should have just replaced from the very start because they just were broken.
Glass bowl goes on, chain and spring is on there, pops in those two holes, put that in there, screws, and then that fits into a wee recess in the bottom of the glass. Make sure it's located, make sure it's located, tighten it up, not too tight, you don't want to bust anything. That is it. Pretty much ready to go. Get this screwed back onto the tanker.
I had been told that the tractor had ran recently. As you've seen, the fuel pipe wasn't properly connected. The fuel filter that I'm working on here was actually cracked internally and wouldn't let the fuel flow, and if you tightened it up it would actually start to split. That was kind of the problem. I kind of missed it at this point, but I do spot it later. Also, we still had the ongoing issue of having been told that the tractor was running on 12 volts.
The petrol! That's right, petrol. Smells petrol-y. So we'll turn our filter, or fuel selector, to TVO, which is on this side. And then you can watch it filling up. Hopefully not leaking out the sides like it was before. Hopefully now it's running down the fuel line and into the float bowl. The float bowl being here, obviously. Now if I unscrew that is fuel tipping out of there. So we could be in a position where this would run. Well, here goes. Ignition's on. Got some TVO in there. We don't have petrol just yet, but I have a sneaky suspicion this thing was run on TVO exclusively before because of the way the gasket looked and the corrosion in the line. So we'll go fire and see. Let's see if we can help it along a wee bit. Alright, good morning. I've now run a course of fresh petrol through it, emptied out the filter bowl. So I've hooked up another battery, and what's happening is whenever the starter lever is pressed forward, the ignition switch is going out, so there's an earth problem again. I rigged up a test light real quick there, sitting over here, because every time that you pull or push the starter lever, then the ignition light just here is going off, which obviously means that it's earthing out somewhere, and I just want to check where it was. So I've taken the power line, the hot line off the starter motor and connected it to a wee bulb there in line. So as you can see, the bulb switching on, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with the switch or the power, anything there, it's all fine. So what we have now is a starter that's earthing out, and we're so close, so close.
To recap, we were told a lot of misleading information that led us down the wrong path with trying to fix the tractor, but we did get to the point of getting the tractor to run, and it did actually run before the starter motor then burnt out. and that was because that it wasn't actually wound for 12 volts, it was still on 6 volts, and of course that was going to happen eventually with the amount of times that we were trying to start it.
I'm not mad keen about this, but the tractor is going to have some photos taken of it. I think there's a wedding or something happening, so they want the tractor at it. So even though she's not finished yet, which is way off to the owner to use with his photos and stuff, we have the tank off so they can get the filter housing repaired, because as it turns out it's cracked internally, and that's a huge issue. It's constantly leaking. It's one of the reasons why the fuel's not getting properly through to the carburetor. And then the other thing then of course is the starter motor has burnt out. As soon as it got it to run, finally fixed the thing, and then the starter motor decided to burn out. So it's obviously not been changed over. It's probably still 6 volt wound. We're running it on 12 volt, as it has been running 12 volt already, but obviously the starter hasn't been fixed, so it's finally give up. So we have those to be repaired. I don't know if the tractor will be back here to be repaired, or we might be able to do those in situ at the owner's house. But for the meantime, we've taken the tank off, and you still can't see it really. You can see the starter's missing on the other side, but it's not too bad. It's presentable enough for pictures and stuff. So I'm going to get this non-running tractor onto the recovery truck, get it away up the road, and hopefully we'll see it again soon once the parts are back and fixed and ready to refit.
So we did get it to the point of running. We then had to get some parts refurbished and replaced. The owner, who demanded the tractor back, made up a lot of things I mentioned there about wanting it back for some family photos. That was utter nonsense. That was complete fabrication. And there was other excuses given to get the tractor back off us, essentially, with the promise that it would come back to us as soon as possible and whenever the parts were ready. That never happened. We never saw that tractor again, and not only that, we never saw payment for that. It actually took several years to get partly paid for this job because of the wranglings involved in that. We just didn't want to post any of the video up until that was at least semi-resolved. We've given up on trying to chase any more about it because we're just not that kind of people. All that aside, I really did enjoy working on this tractor. I love old tractors, and this was a great little project to work on. So we're at the point now of releasing one restoration video a year, like a Christmas special. So maybe we'll just rename them as Christmas specials.